Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into some really fascinating source material about women who are, well, reshaping India's coastal economy.
Mm.
We're looking at these shimmering coasts, where there's this profound movement happening, maybe a quiet revolution. It's all about resilience, innovation, and frankly, sheer resolve in a field dominated by men for so long.
Absolutely. And it's a story about people who've always been the, let's say, silent anchors of the fishing industry. I mean, these women, they've traditionally handled all that crucial post-catch work, the sorting, the processing, drying, getting the fish to market, essential stuff.
But seen as sort of secondary.
Exactly. Their labor was vital, but they were historically denied, formal rights, the recognition, and definitely the financial security that should have come with that work. Silent partners, really.
That denial, that lack of recognition, that seems central to what our sources are exploring. It looks like there are two big currents here. First, this incredible bravery needed decades ago just to demand collective rights. And second, the creativity they need now to deal with modern markets and digital shifts, all of that. And it seems like it didn't start with an app, did it? It started with organizing, with one person.
Yeah, you really have to trace it back. To understand the collective strength today, you need to see where that spark came from. It began with one woman's vision, really, to institutionalize change.
Okay, let's talk about her. Manava Shanti. Our sources paint her as this beacon who really lit the initial spark. In her small fishing village, she didn't just see women doing hard labor. She saw, what the sources call it, a universe of untapped potential.
Right. The collective economic power they held but weren't exercising.
So what did she do?
Her move in 2000 was, well, revolutionary for its time and place. She founded the Indian Union of Fisherwomen. Think about that. Directly challenging centuries of ingrained gender bias. It wasn't just cultural. It was baked into the market structure itself.
And her goal? Was it just about getting rights on paper?
It was deeper than that. Shanti's mission, simple but profound, was to empower women so they could actually make decisions, secure legal standing, to redefine themselves, moving away from being seen as just mere helpers, to being recognized as actual entrepreneurs, as leaders, controlling their own economic futures.
But that sounds incredibly difficult. Organizing people scattered across huge coastlines, facing that kind of deep-rooted resistance. What were the specific challenges beyond just, people being skeptical?
Oh, the hurdles were immense. Logistically, think about it. Women spread across thousands of kilometers, often in quite isolated villages. They're managing households and running the processing side of the business.
Yeah.
Then there was overt resistance. Male leaders in the industry often felt threatened, fearing a loss of control. And policymakers, institutional inertia. They just didn't see women as primary stakeholders in fishing. The system, well, it wasn't built for them.
So her first big fight was just getting the idea accepted, that women could organize and lead.
Absolutely. And there's a great little anecdote in the sources that captures this. It says something like, the first time Shanti stepped onto the boat alone, she was met with whispers and doubt. The second time, she was leading an entire movement. That single act, stepping into that traditionally male space, it was symbolic. It marked her shift from just a challenger to, well, an undeniable leader.
That foundation, that fierce collective spirit she built, that must be what paved the way for what came next, right? The digital wave. Because when new challenges pop up, like pandemics or market shifts, you need that solidarity, that backup.
Exactly. That initial organizing provided the structure, the resilience, the old issues, middlemen taking too big a cut, unreliable market access. They got way worse during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Traditional markets just dried up.
Devastating.
Right. And that necessity really pushed the shift towards using technology in new ways.
Which brings us to Vaishali. She represents this modern wave, doesn't she? Facing that grim reality of dwindling customers, maybe losing everything. But instead of just, hoping things got better, she used that existing network that Union Support Shanti helped build as kind of a safety net while she tried something new.
And that something new was rooted in technology almost everyone had access to already.
Yeah.
WhatsApp.
Right. It's amazing. She basically turned her phone into an e-commerce tool. Every morning, takes pictures, the good ones, apparently the freshest catch, prawns, fish, whatever it is, and sends them out directly to her customers across the city.
And what's really powerful there is the direct-to-consumer model in this specific context. It bypasses, sometimes 2 or 3 layers of middlemen?
It sounds so simple but brilliant. Orders come flooding back via WhatsApp. Deliveries. Managed through regular delivery apps or maybe your own local network. And the key thing, she keeps almost all the profit. So for you listening, the result is immediate. More income for her, total control over her pricing, and she can reach customers way beyond her local dock.
Okay, but let's push back on that a little. WhatsApp sounds easy, right? But how sustainable is that really? When women like Vaishali start scaling up, how do they handle the logistics? Quality control over distance. Is this just a clever short-term fix, or can it be a lasting business model?
That's a really fair question. The sources seem to suggest the key is that underlying cooperative structure. Vaishali isn't alone. She's often getting her catch through networks the union helped establish. So while the tech is simple, the logistics payments, keeping things cold, delivery timing are complex.
Right?
But they are solving it. Using these simple decentralized tools, it seems to be proving itself as a pretty durable pivot, actually.
And that sense of agency is vital. We have that quote from Vaishali, which just perfectly sums up that shift from being a passive worker to an active business owner. She says, "You can't just wait for change. If we don't act, who will?"
Yeah.
It really shows how these digital tools, when picked up by people with that organized, determined spirit, can genuinely redefine lives, whether rural or urban.
That individual drive is amazing. But okay, despite these successes, the unions, the WhatsApp businesses, let's pivot to the big systemic issue.
Yeah.
What's the huge ongoing barrier these women are still running up against?
It boils down to policy exclusion. It's like this massive anchor holding them back economically. Historically, the laws, the rules about who counts as a fisher, who gets aid after a disaster, things like that, they were written without really considering the crucial roles women play after the catch comes ashore.
Yeah.
Processing, selling these were just seen as, well, not real fishing work in policy terms.
Okay, so how does that actually affect someone like Vaishali day to day, or women in the cooperatives? What does that exclusion look like on the ground for them?
Well, it's incredibly practical and damaging. For starters, they often can't access government resources, things like subsidies for drying yards or getting support for cold storage units, and maybe most critical, getting formal bank loans is incredibly tough. Why? Because they're not seen as the primary stakeholder. They don't own the boat, typically. They don't hold the fishing license or registration.
Right.
So in the eyes of financial institutions, they look like a higher risk, even though they're central to the actual business happening.
So even if they're handling, say, 80% of the actual sales and processing, if they can't get a basic business loan, they can't invest, they can't scale up, improve hygiene standards, things like that.
Precisely. And this policy blindness ties right into the problem of first sale rights. Because they lack that formal recognition, that control, they often end up forced to sell their processed catch immediately, right there at the harbor, to these powerful middlemen.
Losing control instantly.
Yes, and selling at much lower prices than they could get if they controlled the product further down the chain. They're the ones doing the hard yards, managing the labor, sometimes literally working through storms to process the catch. But they remain, as one source put it, invisible in the eyes of policymakers when benefits or relief funds are handed out. They just don't get their fair share.
So connecting this back, the successes we are seeing, these thriving cooperatives in places like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, they're happening almost despite the policies, not because of them.
That's a good way to put it. These cooperatives are essentially proving the model works. They're showing tangible results. Better incomes, more social respect, and crucially, they're starting to gain enough collective clout to actually push for policy changes. Their success is practically a roadmap for what should be supported officially.
And what keeps them going? What fuels that fight against such ingrained issues?
It seems to be that deep sense of solidarity they've built. That and the absolute conviction that their work is vital, not just economically, but culturally too, for India's huge seafood sector. Which brings us back to synthesizing this. The real insight here seems to be about the order of things. It looks like that collective muscle, the tough organizing work people like Shanti started back in 2000, that was the essential foundation.
The groundwork.
Exactly. That groundwork is what makes the individual tech-driven innovation like Vaishali using WhatsApp actually scalable, safer for the women involved, and ultimately sustainable. One enables the other.
So what's the bigger picture takeaway here? This journey of India's fisherwomen, it's powerful proof that organizing isn't just about protests or demands. It's about building the actual structure, the bridge that connects ambition and entrepreneurial ideas to, well, economic reality. They're actively smashing stereotypes and rewriting their own history.
And it's a story that deserves global notice. It's worth remembering November 5th is marked as International Fisher Women's Day celebration. It's a day specifically to recognize their spirit, their contributions, which are massive for global food security, too.
That's a perfect reminder. So we've seen Shanti, who dared to build the collective, and Vaishali, who dared to innovate within it.
Right. And this leaves us with a really important question for you, the listener, especially thinking about that policy exclusion. Consider this. What if the key to empowering millions of marginalized women isn't just about drafting complex, top-down policy documents?
Okay. What if it's also about ensuring that the simplest acts of modern business, like a woman sending a WhatsApp message to secure a direct, fair sale for her hard work, what if that simple act was actually recognized and protected by law? Granted the same legal standing as any other formal business transaction.
Wow. That really throws the gap between everyday innovation and the slow pace of regulation into sharp relief, doesn't it? That's a powerful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the incredible courage and creativity along India's coasts. Maybe the next time you enjoy some seafood, you'll think for a moment about the hands that brought it to market, the invisible labor, and those policy gaps that still need closing. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.